skilling programs is not an answer to the question of unemployment. 59% will stay with the union government. What is more, it is also going to put a number of conditions that make a state eligible or ineligible for certain transfers. So it's a serious violation of federalism. So even the budgeted transfer did not take place. It's not an act of charity. In fact, they have imposed many burdens on the states. For the new education policy, for example. If you don't accept it, then you don't get grants for school education.
A high stress on the value agriculture by supporting high value crops such as coconut, sandalwood, cocoa, cashew, almonds, walnuts.
I don't see there is a urea subsidy, which by the way, in fact, that's the interesting thing. The urea subsidy has declined. So rural distress is not being addressed in this budget.
No measures to arrest the distress.
Yeah, although the claim is that our Sankalp, Mary Antoinette saying, let them eat cake. There is a mass of farmers who are suffering from not getting remunerative prices for the produce. There's a mass of rural labor who are not getting jobs. I think I mentioned this to you earlier also. We have done a survey of.
While presenting the Union Budget 2026, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said there is an emphasis on women entrepreneurs, agriculture, employment in this budget. But what do these announcements really mean on the ground? Do they really translate into better jobs, higher incomes and real economic security for ordinary people? To help us understand the budget beyond headlines and numbers, we are joined by noted economist Venkatesh Athreya. Can you explain to us what this budget 2026 means to an ordinary citizen? Does it clearly show where all the jobs come from, how we are going to address the rural poverty, the empowerment of youth? Because many business chambers have come up with a statement saying this is a very positive budget. There is a strong focus on youth and skilling, all that. How do you look at this budget and how will this translate on ground?
Skilling has been talked about in the last couple of budgets, and skilling is not a substitute for employment. Skilling may potentially, under most favorable circumstances, increase the probability of getting a job, but by itself skilling will not get you a job. So the attempt to offer skilling programs is not an answer to the question of unemployment. Unemployment is structural, it's across the main economy, and in particular, it is also centered in rural areas. We observe migration after the COVID period, during which people, remigrated back to villages. Slowly, we are observing all those people are back. If we take Tamil Nadu, Kerala, they are here in large numbers. So it is distress that is driving them. They can't make this kind of money in where they are. There are
and
no
whatever
jobs.
Skilling programs that government has introduced?
They are completely irrelevant to this section.
Not relevant.
Skilling programs might relate to those who already have a certain level of education and need a specific additional skill or apprentices, but this is a standard trick.
But what we have, the huge young population, they are, what kind of sector they can be accommodated?
In the working age population and among the younger age groups, we have a large number of people who are not employed right now. The official figures don't tell you the whole story because some of it doesn't get captured in the official data. We had skilling last year also, and we had a couple of years we've been talking about skilling and training, and this is actually legitimizing what corporates are already doing, which is to get these fresh graduates from engineering colleges, pay them a pittance by calling them apprentice for 2 years and then sending them home. So they're paying a very nominal wage to those graduates of engineering colleges where parents would have spent money, sold land to make them study engineering. Very tragic, really. And now for a government to claim that we have skilling programs and that will create employment is not correct. This is simply a claim that cannot be sustained. So if you are serious about employment, first of all, you must expect a major demand stimulus from the government to improve demand in the economy for goods and services, to put purchasing power in the hands of the people. They, having seen how dismal the economy was, they did lower GST rates near the festival season. And that led to some improvement in demand, but that is from a certain strata of society, not from all sections.
So when we look at this transfer to the states, I'm just looking at the figures given in the budget. The total transfer to the states, that graph seems to be increasing, right? That shows an...
In absolute number. In absolute number, it may increase.
Yeah.
But as a share of...
percentage-wise,
if you look at
it will not. Okay.
In terms of what they're entitled to and what they've got. For example,
Because
We've
the
seen
composition of transfer to states and union territories, I could see there is an increase. The devolution also
I'll just look
in
at that.
in 2024 to 25, it was just 12.86, but now it has increased to 15.26 lakh crores. So, don't you think this is an improvement?
Now you see, for example, budget estimate of transfer to the states of their state share of tax revenue was about 14,22,444 crores.
Okay.
But the actual revised estimate is 13,92,000. So even the budgeted transfer did not take place. There was a reduction there. But apart from that, the Finance Commission recommendations of the previous 15th Finance Commission, they require a certain devolution. It's not an act of charity. It's a constitutionally mandated requirement that the state government of India transfer a part of its tax revenue to the states as per a certain formula, 41% overall, and then among the states based on certain criteria. So they're not doing anybody a favor. They're just doing what is a constitutional duty. But in fact, they have imposed many burdens on the states. For the new education policy, for example. If you don't accept it, then you don't get grants for school education. Samagra scheme, you don't get grants for it. Tamil Nadu government has pointed it out, Kerala has pointed it out, Karnataka has pointed it out. So all the southern states, in fact, more or less, have noted that the union government is not fulfilling its constitutional obligations. 16th Finance Commission also recommended the same 41% only. So they have been very favorable to the centre that way.
Okay.
States have not therefore got an increase in the share of total revenue. Bulk of expenditures come to the states. Union government has relatively much more limited obligations. So in fact, if you're serious about fiscal federalism, then untied funding to states should increase. Let them decide. Let the states go to the local bodies and let the local bodies decide. Devolution is very important. So also decentralization, democratization. But these are not being taken seriously in the
So that they
budgeting
can
process.
match the needs on the ground.
Yes, they would. We assume they would know better.
Okay.
And even the principle of democracy, they may not even do the best possible job.
But the
principle of
proximity
democracy-
matters.
Democracy entails that the local people participate in decision making. So devolution of functions, functionaries, and finances is very important.
Okay.
And state governments are also not very virtuous in this regard. Some of them might not devolve.
They may not give the funds to the local
The
bodies.
only exception I can see is Kerala. They have been very committed to devolving funds to local bodies and to decentralization. Many other states go back and forth, the problems. But union government must do what it is constitutionally mandated to do, which is to provide the states what they are entitled to.
The minister says there is a strong push given through technology in agriculture, and they are into high value crops, livestock
No, but
support.
They had a committee which discussed this and decided on a time frame for doubling farmers' incomes. Hasn't happened. They, in the farmers' agitation was at its strongest. They said we will minimum support prices as per the Swaminathan Commission recommendations. They have not done that. So in real terms, this quantum of support that India's farmers get from the state is really quite pathetic compared to many other countries in the world. Likewise, the state governments are in a real fix. They have limited resources. So the centre has been basically denying state governments legitimate resources.
Okay.
For example, if you take any number of programs I can cite, one would be that you had this national devolution measures which have not been implemented. And the Finance Commission report has been accepted by the government now. So that's a very serious threat, because the Finance Commission report says the devolution will remain at 41% of the states. 59% will stay with the union government. What is more, it is also going to put a number of conditions that make a state eligible or ineligible for certain transfers. So it's a serious violation of federalism that's coming up. It's not discussed in the budget immediately, but in the budget presentation, Madam said that we are accepting that
Finance Commission recommendation
report of the Panagria, the 16th Finance Commission report. So there is a thread there that we are not elaborating today. We need to look at the numbers. Also, if you look at the overall stimulus to the economy from this budget, as per the budget speech, the spending in 25-26 revised estimate was 49.6 lakh crore rupees. The budget estimate of total expenditure in 26-27 is 53 lakh crores. This is not even 7 to 8% increase over the last years in nominal terms, in just money terms. Now, if you take into account price rise, this is hardly an increase at all.
I would like to move on to the next one on the entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
In this budget, Finance Minister Nirmala talked about empowering women entrepreneurs, and she said there is one particular initiative like She Marts, where they want to improve the retail outlets run by women. So, do you think this can really change the women's economic position, or it's just a symbolic measure?
By itself, it may not make much of an impact, but one shouldn't be opposed in principle to providing whatever possible forms of support are possible for women to market their products. Now, this self-help groups approach, where you have women self-help groups, they produce something, and these marts might help them sell the produce. But that's like a drop in the ocean. It's not a major measure to intervene and change or transform their lives. Where it happens, well and good. But again, this is why is the government of India doing this? Marketing is done at the local level. Government of India should provide finances to the state governments and tell them, encourage them to use that for marketing the products of women's self-help groups. And this is what Kerala already does through their scheme. They have a very important scheme in Kerala, Kudumbashri, which is doing exactly this, that they help with marketing, with financing, with technical
I've
inputs.
been to Kerala, I have visited many Kudumbashri shops, and I was really surprised. I even saw a parking lot being managed by women's self-help group, and these women's self-help groups, some of them even buy agricultural lands.
Yes,
they cultivate collectively.
Yes, this is the thing.
Community farming is
surely empowering women is that. So this I don't know how it will work out. Let us see. There's only a mention in the speech. But as the scheme gets spelled out, we'll be able to talk a little bit more.
Right.
But it does seem that at the moment it's a fairly token effort.
Okay.
And inevitably so. Government of India can't be doing everything. What I'm saying is Government of India should get rid of a lot of the money and give it to the states. Let them do it. So why do you trust yourself but not the states?
Okay.
That's the problem.
You have done many research related to agriculture, how the farm income helps the families, all that. So in this budget, do you think the finance minister has given a push to agriculture sector, because there are many talks about giving incentives to cashew and coconut farmers, increasing their income, and measures to bring in AI into agriculture? They've
talked about pharma and some other items in the budget, but not so much about biopharma. Shakti is talked about. Of course, chemical parks are there, and I don't see there is a urea subsidy, which, by the way, in fact, that's the interesting thing. The urea subsidy has declined. Okay, is expected to decline from 1,26,475 crores in 25-26 revised estimate to 1,16,805 crores, even lower than what it was in budget estimate of 25-26.
Okay.
So it's not clear that the government of India is, attending to that. Likewise, the nutrient-based subsidy. The actual revised estimate for 25-26 was 60,000 crores. But now the budget estimate for 26-27 is 54,000 crores. It's not clear they're increasing the subsidy on nutrients.
So how about rural jobs and migration? Because can the farm and rural measures in the budget slow the distress migration to cities?
No, you see, migration to cities takes place for a number of reasons. Certainly distress is one very important factor, as you say. And if you're not providing farmers minimum support prices, if you're not taking away even the limited guarantee of rural employment, you are increasing your rural distress. I mean, after all, the whole abolition of the MNREGA, which is a right that the workers had earned through a lot of struggle, you abolish the scheme, and instead of that you put in a scheme which is kind of at the discretion of the governments concerned. That's not good. So that's certainly not going to improve rural livelihoods and will create more distress in the countryside. Likewise, you promised MSP, minimum support price, as per Swaminathan Commission recommendations, but you're not giving that. So farming will be in a crisis now, especially with the kind of tariffs that have been put by Trump and the uncertain international situation. And we don't know what are the details in the Indo-EU treaty, although it's talked about and as some achievement. But from whatever I have seen, and given the overall global and local context, I don't see a serious attempt to address rural distress, which would have required MSP being given, which would have required employment schemes being sustained. And over the years, the employment provided under MNREGS had been declining quite a bit. Now it's abolished more or less, and it's up to the discretion of the Government of India to allocate funds, and it's not demand based anymore. It's what the government thinks it can afford to spend. And that's so I don't see how government policies now. There's been a lot of focus on, which is necessary on IT-enabled services. All that is understandable, but there's been
What about the food on the plate?
Yeah, nothing for rural food security or rural, environmental sustainability, or take things like rural education or rural health care. So, rural distress is not being addressed in this budget.
No measures to arrest the distress.
Yeah, although the claim is that our sankalp, says the finance minister, is to help the hungry and the undernourished and the vulnerable and all
So
that.
I'm just reading from the budget statement. Sir, Union Finance Minister laid a high stress on the value agriculture by supporting high value crops such as coconuts, sandalwood, cocoa, cashew, almonds, walnuts, all these.
Yes, all of which together account for a very small proportion of the value of agricultural output in this country. So, yes, that's good. I wouldn't mind eating good walnuts, and I wouldn't mind walnut farmers getting a good income. Who would mind it? This sounds a bit like Mary Antoinette saying, let them eat cake. There's a mass of farmers who are suffering from not getting remunerative prices for the produce. There's a mass of rural labor who are not getting jobs. I think I mentioned this to you earlier also. We have done a survey of rural manual labor in Tamil Nadu. And the wage rates are like 200 for women, 300 for men. How can you subsist on that for a day? And that, and
given the inflation on
they are also
vegetables.
employed on the average only for about 140 days in a year. So now you've taken away MNREGA. So you're actually pushing people into distress in the countryside by what you have done before the budget. So to pretend that you have some tiny scheme here for growing walnuts is no solution to the crisis you have intensified by your policies.
So how do I understand government has come up with a lot of schemes, many things. They have come up with the new schemes, all that. But can you explain to me where they have parked the higher amount of budget money?
Yeah. There will be a caveat. See, the budget provides some useful graphics which show where government's receipts come from and where government's expenditure goes. So in principle, that's a good idea. But remember, these are budget estimates. So at the end of the year, we don't know actually what will be the outcomes.
Okay.
Maybe mostly this will be followed, maybe there will be some discrepancies. So keep that in mind. But if you look at the receipts of the government, which is the first thing I want to look at, you will find that corporation tax contributes only 18% of receipts that the Government of India totally gets. GST, which is mostly paid by the poor people, is 15% of the total budget here. And borrowings and other liabilities, 24%. Non-tax revenue is fairly trivial at about 10%. Income tax is 21%. So this is interesting because it means personal income tax paid by individuals totally
that
exceeds
becomes,
higher than the taxes paid by corporations. This is extraordinary. I mean, most countries this won't be the case. Corporate tax rates must be enhanced. They have lowered it. I mean, same finance minister lowered the corporate taxes from 30% in October 2019 to 22%, the lowest tax rate across the world, the Trump tax rate, more or less. She also said at the time, and this is still true this is still the case, that industry started after October 2019 will attract an even lower tax rate of 15%. Okay? Now this means that you're giving up beforehand a lot of tax revenue that you could have tapped from the corporates who are making good profits. They're not there for charity, they're there to make profits. Yet you've given it away. But so you turn and tax the ordinary people. In that, the key
So
thing
can we say GST and income tax put together, we will
I
have
won't put them together, but GST is already very high, 15%.
Yeah.
For the poor, that's a major burden.
Yeah.
And income tax is 21%. This is after the concession given last year under personal income tax, which roughly amounted to a loss of revenue of 1 lakh crores. So, government is treating the so-called middle classes, who really are not middle, they're really part of the top or upper stratum of society along with the corporates, very gently. But ordinary people who buy various goods and services which are essential to their existence, they are paying much higher taxes through GST. So it's a very unequal, inequalizing tax system. What happens then is this is not adequate for what you have to spend, then you borrow. The interest payments on that. So this is the statistic I want to show you. Where does the government's rupee go?
Yeah.
Many things are there. You can talk about central sector schemes, state sector schemes.
Where do we spend all our money?
Yes, and the main thing is we keep talking about subsidies all the time, right?
Farmers subsidy.
Food, fertilizer and energy, maximum, major subsidies. They account for 6% of the budget expenditures. 6%, okay?
Okay.
Now contrast this with interest payments on past debt. In other words, you let the rich keep their money, you borrow from them. Instead of taxing them, you borrow from them. So 20% of the budget is paid out as interest, not to the poor obviously, to the rich. Who poor are not lending government money. So through the mechanism of allowing tax concessions to the rich and then going back to them and saying, please give me money for various schemes, so borrowing through government bonds and government paper, we are spending 20 paise out of every 1 rupee of expenditure on paying the rich
interest. Okay.
to the rich, not to the poor. We borrow from the rich and pay them sizable interest payments. Nobody talks about this. People talk about subsidy. Oh, ilavasam, this is very wrong. Freebies and all very bad. But people don't talk about why are we, offering concessions to corporates all the time.
Yeah.
We are essentially subsidizing this corporate welfare. You can call it that if you like. That's what's happening. So this has to be discussed. The state share of taxes is only about 22 rupees. But a handful of corporates get 20% of the expenditure through interest paid to them by corporates. The wealthy people, not just corporate, but wealthy people, they are the ones who lend to government. The poor man is not lending to the government. The rich man is lending to the government, or rich woman for the matter. And there's very little that, you can't justify this kind of taxation and borrowing strategy. Why can't you tax the rich effectively and use that for development expenditure? Instead, what you're doing is you're, in the name of incentivizing the investors, you lower tax rates, which means your revenue does not increase as it should. Then you turn to them and say, give me money, and pay them interest on it. So, it doesn't make sense.